Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Okay, hi guys. Welcome to DevOps Accent, bi-weekly podcast where we discuss all the things DevOps and all the themes around it with our delicious accents. Here today with me, Pablo, Kirill. Welcome back, Kirill. And I, Leo. Hi guys, how are you?
Fine, very good.
Kirill, how was your vacation? Tell us a little bit about what you did last time.
This is like a school.
how I spent my summer. It was good, Leo.
Yes.
I spent 4 days in Südtirol, enjoying relaxation in mountains and hikes and walks and saunas.
Did you walk a lot? Did you walk a lot?
Yeah, within some limits that would still make it relaxed. So no hardcore hiking.
Great. Okay, so before we start, before we begin, I would like to make a short announcement because next week, if you are listening to this episode on Friday or weekend, like I usually do, and yes, I listen to our own podcast. Nothing wrong about it. Anyway, next week, between June 21st and 23rd, we will be in Amsterdam at the DevOps Days conference that we sponsor. And I invite anyone who gets a chance to attend that event to join us there and just pass by, come to the sponsorship section and area and visit our booth, say hi, and maybe, I don't know, even take a part in a new iPad Pro giveaway for the conference attendees only. So you'd better be there. And I also want to remind you that the best thing not to miss anything that we publish and release during the weeks is to be subscribed to our MKDev Dispatch newsletter. The link is in the description as usually. Just hit the subscribe button and you will be notified about everything that happens around DevOps and something we discuss here and some themes we reserve for Dispatch only. So about this conference, I'm so much very excited about it. I've scanned through the program. There are like several numbers of topics that talks that I would like to attend. But have you guys picked out the most interesting workshops and talks you'd like to attend there?
For me, at least, I was checking that there is one that is about multi-cluster in Kubernetes. That is sound interesting. But the crazy thing is the amount of workshops that we have, because I was checking before the page and there is something like almost 30 workshops. So, it's going to be 2 hours or 1 hour and a half each one. But it's crazy, the amount of those. 4 in parallel, as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most of them are like even hands-on workshops, and they even require you to take your own laptop and go through the practice session with the speaker. And this is like very cool for me.
Yes, and even what I was telling before, because there are many different topics. So not everything is technical. You have topics that are non-technical topics. So I think it's going to be super, super interesting, to everyone, because you can choose wherever you want.
I'm also curious how it's going to be organized, because the workshops, like if you read the topics of workshops, it's more like regular tech talks. So it's not like, because workshops usually maybe like 4-6 hours and you run something like videos for some of our customers. But here it's kind of, some very small topics, and maximum I think is 2 hours per topic.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to see the difference between the other 2 days, which are kind of conference days, and these workshop days. But from my side, there is this whole platform engineering track on the conference, and I'm interested in attending these ones because that's kind of the still fresh area that comes after DevOps, let's say. and everyone has different understanding of what platform engineering is, and it's always interesting to see how different companies implemented it. I think that it's one of those areas where there is not some, like, there's probably already enough theory on what roughly should be done when you build a platform, but not so many concrete examples of how companies implemented internal platforms. So I'm looking forward to learning more about this on this conference. Plus, there's one talk from developer from Rotterdam. I will mispronounce her name, Luella Krimmers, about dangers of survivorship bias in tech. I assume that's going to be a talk about why, if some company is successful with Kubernetes or some other complex technology, it does not mean that you should be using this, and there are many companies who are failing to adopt this. And I love stories about why some fancy popular solution is stupid and should not be selected by most companies.
This is on Friday, no, Kirill?
Yeah. It's Friday 10, one of the first talks on Friday.
Yeah, I'd like to hear like more fail stories.
Yeah, this is good because always everyone is talking about something that is working. It's like when you hear a podcast about companies, everyone is talking how good we are, how big we are, and how everything is okay and nothing fail ever, and and it's strange that in 3 months we jump from 0 to 100 millions. So why? How? Okay, it's good to hear these real people.
As for me, most interesting part of the conference for me would be barbecue and karaoke. That will take place on Thursday, I believe. So yeah. And okay, on a serious note, like karaoke, of course, it's fun. But on a serious note, I'd like to attend this keynote on Thursday by Julia Sullivan. She's the one behind the book. She wrote the book Geek's Guide to Work, and she would like to share her take on imposter syndrome and why it's called like that. And she thinks that this is not the correct name for the syndrome, and she talks about it quite a lot on her LinkedIn. So if you're following her, probably you can guess what she will be talking about. But still, I think that this will be a very interesting topic. And even if you won't be able to attend the conference, I think they will release it online at some point, like in several months. And I encourage anyone to watch her. Or if you are eager to learn more, just to subscribe to her LinkedIn and just read what she's talking about. Quite interesting topic, but it's absolutely not related to technical side of your job. It just relates to your professional side of your personality, and it can be applied to anyone in our industry. So yeah, but right now, as we are recording this podcast, there's a funny thing happening somewhere out there on the internet. A very large number of communities on Reddit have gone private and become inaccessible to the public, turning Reddit more or less into not very interesting place today, at least for me, because my feed today is only a couple of gaming subs. Everything else is just inaccessible, especially news. And this comes as a protest to Reddit's new policies on API, their cost, and how third-party applications can use them. This new pricing policy effectively makes it impossible to the most popular apps for Reddit, such as Apollo and Reddit is Fun, to keep working. So the creator of Apollo shared on social media that in order for the app to continue to exist, they would have to pay a whopping $20 million a year to Reddit. And I think that's crazy. And that said, the official Reddit app is just atrociously bad compared to Apollo and to other social websites. And it's like dog shit bad. It is very uncomfortable to use, to the point where it's much more convenient to just simply open an old Web 2.0 interface on your smartphone and use it in that way. It lacks support for moderators, and it's very much more of an accessibility problem. But third-party application solved all these issues, and they made Reddit comfortable to use from your phone, from your tablet. And in the face of this, Reddit announced that access to the API will become payable, which causes a huge wave of outrage that we are facing today. And it's also noteworthy because Reddit decided to lock their API behind a paywall because OpenAI used Reddit to train their ChatGPT artificial intelligence. So, and Reddit decided that such big companies shouldn't have a free access to this amount of information for free, and they decided to lock it and start earning on the content that users create for Reddit. So that's a short version of what's happening, and there are a lot of discussion around that and a lot of leaks of a private conversation between CEOs, how they talk to each other, and it looks dirty. But I wanted to discuss today what's your general opinion on the company putting a paywall on their API, and what's your take on this situation? And what do you think about it in general?
Okay, I'm going to start, Kirill, if this is not a problem for you. But okay, first, you say the word is a company. So, and as a company, you can do what you want. And what I mean that you can do what you want is that you have a business model, and this business model can produce or not produce money. Depends what you want. If you want to have an organization that is non-profit organization, that you say, I don't want to generate money. Mm-hmm. I only want to get, in some way, money to pay the salaries of the employees and to pay the hardware that I want to have to be able to have all the services up and running, and that's all. This is a non-profit. But then if you jump from non-profit to profit, then you need to get profit. Reddit, they have ads, but maybe they discovered that there are other companies even more profitable than them. And the only thing that they are doing is like these animals that when you cross the river in the movies and they put on your leg and start to lick your blood. So at the end, this is the idea of these other tools. So they are not doing anything. They're only a beautiful skin, able to use better than you the APIs that your own produce, and making money for that. So then I understand the point that you as a company, you're telling, okay, this is my business, and I move the business in the way that I want. Now, the customers, they're going to take a decision. So, and the customers is the people who is using Reddit. So I don't want this tool anymore. I want this tool. And with the time, everything will give another reason to the CEO who took this decision to charge for the use of the API. But again, every company charges for the use of the API. There is no company that says, okay, maybe there are examples that you can tell me, no, this is for free, but this is a company at the end. They need to take an economical decision. Mm-hmm. So, and they will check the business plan that they have, and that's all.
I may say that I'm kind of on the edge here. I would love to agree with you completely, because on some level, I know that they have to make money. And there is another point to that, because, for example, some third-party application even though they are more comfortable to use, they have more features for moderators and for users to use Reddit in a more convenient way. But they created these features. But on top of that, they display you ads inside their own application, and they earn money on displaying these ads. And companies that would like to show ads on Reddit, they prefer to go to a third-party application rather than to Reddit directly, because they know how many people are using this third-party application, and they prefer to display their ads to them. And this third-party company, for example, Apollo, they earn money instead of Reddit. And this is something, I'd say, a shady part of this. And if you are earning money based on my application, like, why won't you share it with me? So you are using you are using Reddit, you are using my API, and you're earning money with that. Like, you should share. So I think this is something that need to be considered. But at the same time, I have hard time understanding why you would want to put a paywall on your own product before making it as accessible as other third-party application. For example, I have this example from my personal experience with Windows, and when I had to create a new partition for the hard drive, and Windows didn't really saw the USB drive that I plugged in, and I wanted to figure how to make it work, and I read like several guides how to make it work on Windows, and I failed to do so, even following these guides. But then I downloaded an app, a free app. It has its paid version, and it's this app saw this USB drive, and I restored it, and I create a partition inside of this USB drive in a few clicks, and it was created in such comfortable way. And I was wondering why Windows doesn't create this in a similar way. Like you should be user friendly, right? And this interface in this third-party app was so friendly. It explained what I see, where I should click, how I should create this. But but nothing of that in Windows. And this keeps me wonder why. And this happens a lot, and I simply don't have answer why this happens. And this transfers to Reddit. They doesn't bother creating a comfortable or user-friendly interface for them, because they know that everybody will use it anyway. So why bother? Maybe this something happen. What do you guys think?
I think it's this like transition from the world where we got all API access for free. Because I remember 10 years ago, there was this even concept of, I think it was called mesh app applications, which basically people would build whole products and websites just by taking Twitter API, Facebook API, and then many different APIs, and just write some kind of a wrapper on top of it, because all of the APIs were free in this kind of social media world. And now maybe people are just used to like accessing these APIs for free. But that's what Pablo says. Is basically it's a commercial company. And in the end, if you use API to automate something, like let's say API for Spotify to create playlists, okay, it's actually you implement some new feature, you don't access resources of Spotify in this case. But in case of the cloud provider, you use API to access compute resources that they have. So you are supposed to pay for this because they lend you some part of the compute capacity and charge you some margin on top. And in case of Reddit or Twitter, they don't sell you as an API developer the compute capacity, they sell you data. And it feels natural that, yes, they charge for this. I don't see a huge issue there, because there are used to be plenty of Twitter applications that would take all the data and whatever Twitter provides and just charge you money, like a paid application in App Store just for Twitter. And Twitter doesn't make money out of it, which as a business, I think, yes, they should find a way to make money. The issue is that there's probably not such an easy way to monetize this. Like Reddit and Twitter, they went with just, let's charge per API request, which might not make that much sense actually for data stuff. But what would probably make more sense is that if you use our APIs and show people the same ads that we show on our applications. So then Reddit still profits from this. And if you look at the numbers of this Apollo application, it's the guy needs to pay 20 million per year because he has 7 billion requests or something like this to Reddit API. First of all, 7 billion requests is a shitload of requests.
Exactly.
That's a significant part of the infrastructure on Reddit side that needs to handle this load, and they need to have humans to process these requests. I'm not sure how Apollo is monetized, if it's a free app or not. If it's free, cool. Then it's just a bad decision from Reddit not to acquire this application in some way, and then just make Apollo app, say, official app. But if Apollo is making money from Reddit, then it makes sense that Reddit charges them. But the core issue here is OpenAI, right? So there are even some articles telling that the success of ChatGPT is based on data from websites like Reddit, or primarily Reddit. Because now this is the biggest thing in the world, OpenAI and ChatGPT, that will be extremely successful and take lots of money, and also feels unfair probably to Reddit that it's basically used on decade or more of data collection from Reddit. So in all the commercial sense and kind of fairness sense, I see good reason to start monetizing.
So only 1 second. Only 1 second. Sorry. Only to give the numbers to understand the point. So Reddit has 2,000 employees, and they made 500 million revenue last year. So that means that if you made the numbers, it's more or less $250,000 per employee. And this is the salary of a person in USA. So what I mean with that is only with the money that they made, they only can pay the salaries. I'm not talking about the infra. I am not talking about any expenses of the company. So the company, Reddit per se. So, okay, that is a 10 billion valuation company, a 15 billion valuation company. The company per se is not profitable company. So it's a company that is losing money. So, and I understand that they see a company like Apollo, that I was checking now, that they have these 1.7 billion of requests that Kirill is telling, that Reddit is paying for that request, because is Apollo make all these billions of requests of APIs to Reddit that I had to man that is in the cloud. No idea, but I had to man that is in the cloud. And this company needs to pay all these API requests because Apollo has an application that even they charge, as far as I can see here, maybe wrong because I never use Apollo either, $5.99 to have a Pro Ultra Apollo version. So at the end is money for Apollo that is not coming back to Reddit.
Exactly.
And it is what it is. So why I'm going to pay to you, imagine 20 millions or 10 millions? Because if they tell you need to pay to me 20, maybe the real price is 10 millions. Why Reddit company needs to pay 10 millions to Apollo because they are Apollo? Sorry, this is not the things, the way that the things are working is crazy.
The cloud tech industry is evolving so fast. Do you keep up with it by improving your skills or upskilling your team? At MKDev, we offer a variety of workshops for just that, from the basics to expert knowledge. Before delivering our workshops and training sessions, we carry out a detailed assessment of each participant. To make sure the workshop is helpful for you and your team, we will add more content to it or throw out what you already know. Or we create a custom workshop specifically for the needs of your team and the specifics of your project.
But do you think that there is an ethical issue with all of this when the company tries to sell access to the user-generated content? Like in that case, I don't have a problem to pay for Apollo or even if it becomes a paid application. As for now, it's free application. You can download it and you can purchase premium features, and there are ads inside the application. It's fine, but I'm still okay for even if it becomes paid application, because it provides a lot of cool features that makes my experience with Reddit more comfortable, more fun, and more engaging. And I'm ready to pay for that. But at the same time, when the company earns money selling access to the content that I and other users created, I don't feel this is right. I kind of feel this is wrong, but I cannot entirely fully explain why I feel that way. I have a similar feeling with Twitter selling access to the API, but
then I will send you an invoice with the salaries of the employees, the percentage of you, and then you can pay the amount. Oh, you can do something better. You can buy shares of this company. So because
I pay this company by creating content. Okay, so I create content.
You don't
I
pay
make my contribution to the success of this company. I create tweets, I create posts, I create
but
comments,
you need to think a different
I create
way.
engagement.
You are creating something that is giving to you your own pleasure, because you write something in Twitter because you want to have likes. And the company is giving to you a place where the people is going to like you. Because if you are in your couch, in your living room, and you are talking to yourself, nobody is going to clap you, or nobody is going to give you a like. This is what they're giving to you. A place where you can talk. It's like, for example, if I open a courtyard in my house and I charge €3 everyone, and then the people can go to my courtyard and they can speak, like many years ago. They can talk to the other people. I am thinking, blah, blah. And here is speaking for 20 minutes about something. Mm-hmm. And then you're telling, no, you need to pay to me. Come on, please. So I made the business. You can come here to my house and you can speak about what you want, because you are free of speech here in this place. Nobody's going to make you anything, because I am here to defend you, because I have 2 or 3 bodyguards. I pay all the service that you have around. I give you water, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This is what is doing these companies.
Yeah, that
so
makes
it's
sense.
not only that you are not creating Reddit. You are one of the 200 million of posts that they have every year. And that's all. So, you are not... So it's true that without you, Reddit is not there. But it's true that without Reddit, you don't have a place where to put the thing that you want to say. So, and the one who invests money is Reddit. You don't invest a thing. So it's different.
Okay, how do you think this will end with Reddit? It will stop in 2 days. Like most of the subs, they go dark for 48 hours. After that, do you think it will just stop and Reddit will implement their policies and nothing will change and everyone will just cope with that?
I think it will. What will happen is exactly what happened with Twitter and Mastodon. Nothing. Lots of noise about
I'm
it.
thinking that.
Okay, there is a small niche community of people who actually started using Mastodon in addition to Twitter. But everyone is on Twitter. Like, why do we migrate? You cannot migrate tens of millions of users to Mastodon overnight. Same as Reddit. People are on Reddit not because of the mobile app, it's because of the content. So what do you do now? Build all of this 10 years worth of content somewhere else? And if you start using this platform, you should be ready that it's not your content. Whatever you wrote on Reddit, it belongs to Reddit. Whatever you wrote on Facebook, if you are dedicated to create unique content that belongs to you, create your own platform. That's what also every, let's say, serious blogger or writer is doing. No, like WordPress, like register the domain, like website costs whatever, free, $2 a month. It's if you want really to publish something that belongs to you, you have all the means to do it. Whatever, like use Squarespace or any other website builder like Wix.com. Mm-hmm. But if you go to someone else's platform like Meta or Twitter or Reddit, somewhere in terms and conditions it says that nothing of this belongs to you. And you're writing it for the for-profit company. I would be more upset if Wikipedia tries to pull off something like this, because it's actually a non-profit foundation.
Exactly.
With the idea of making the public knowledge. So they cannot make money like a non-profit foundation. And for this, like, I'm happy to actually pay Wikipedia money every month because I think that's actually, it's a good concept. It's something that belongs to human, theoretically. But in case of Reddit, it's a commercial company, so they set the rules.
Yeah.
No, and even the main problem is that Apollo get the API without advertisement, so then Apollo can add ads. That the problem with this ad is that is la, I don't know the name in English, sanguijuela. I will check that now. How is that said in English? The problem is that this company is taking Reddit and is liquid all the Reddit, and then I can add whatever ad that I want in my app because I only getting the content. I am not getting the anything else. I am even don't pay. And wow, 7 billion requests per month. So it's 84 billions per year. So it's a big number of requests. So and at the end, who paid those 20 millions? Reddit.
Take this, Leo, I'm not sure if you like, there's this website from Russia, Kinopub.
Yes.
I think I also showed it to Pablo. So basically the idea of this website is that owners collect all the content, all the TV shows from like Netflix, Apple TV, all the movies, everything in a central place. They give you a very easy to use interface. You don't have any ads and you can just watch stuff and you pay something like $10 per 6 months. And is it okay? Because yes, like someone put an effort to make all the content centralized and convenient to access, and it's for the user fantastic. But actually, it's a pirate website in the end. It's stolen content that you pay extra money to access like conveniently, but it doesn't change the nature. That it's just someone parasites on top of paid content from the studios, which makes zero money. And here is the same. Like Apollo is not conceptually different here because they just built on top of Reddit's content and charge money, and Reddit doesn't profit from it. Yes, you can say, but Reddit's content is user generated, but that's already a contract between Reddit and the authors on Reddit. And as I just said, the contract is it belongs to Reddit, whatever you write. So it's fair.
So the solution for Apollo is, for example, to create, to make the application paid or to make a subscription model for the user. So if you want more convenient features to use Reddit, pay for them.
That
would be fair.
The creator of Apollo should maybe then just calculate how much it will cost per request and base a new subscription price on what he pays to Reddit. That would be fair. So like if you want to build on top of someone else's platform and content, you should pay to this platform and then calculate your own costs and charge according amount of money. And if it doesn't work financially, well, okay, find another platform to build on top of. Like, there is
because imagine for 1 second that DuckDuckGo, the search engine, really is not using DuckDuckGo search engine. And really imagine that DuckDuckGo is only calling the Google API and using the Google API. And then when you write something in the DuckDuckGo search engine, really you go to Google API. And even now, DuckDuckGo even is adding AdWords. Mm-hmm. What do you think that Google is going to make here? So I can imagine that there are 2,000 million of lawyers knocking the door of DuckDuckGo 2 seconds after you do that. So because at the end, who made the web pages? It's not Google who is making all the web pages in the world. Google is only having a search engine where he has a list of all the web pages, and he is not the owner, or he or she or it, the owner of the search. So it's only the owner of the result of the search. It's not the owner of the web that is under this list. But if you are DuckDuckGo and you want to go to this search engine and really is calling Google, and really Google is doing the work with all these APIs, and he answered back to DuckDuckGo for free, and then he make money of that, everyone is going to tell, Google is stupid. But here, no, because it looks like Reddit is more open-friendly. But at the end, it's 2,000 employees that they need to go to work every day. And 2,000 families that you need to think about that too. Because and the idea of the creator or co-creators and all the people who is investing in this company, because the current value is the 50 billion. So that means that maybe they went to the second or the third evaluation. So there are another investors who add money in this company. So, at the end, a company is a company. Is you're the company, the people put money in your company, then they get a percentage of the company grow because they put millions of the company, they grow more and more, there are more and more people working, and it is like it is.
And an interesting part in all that story is that the companies, because of which Reddit decided to implement this new API policy, they didn't say anything about it. They just, well, okay, if you say so.
What they can say.
Yeah, okay, fine. But we all know another example of when a company introduces new policies, new price models in DevOps area is Docker. I don't know all the details, but I remember some time ago when Docker announced a new pricing models, and a lot of developers, a lot of companies decided to switch from Docker to alternatives. And this is kind of entirely different story. And how it is different, probably you should like explain it more details, because I have an impression that because of that, all these events made made an opportunity for smaller companies to enter the market, market of containerization and all that, because just simply because a lot of users started looking for Docker alternatives. Is it true, or the story was a little bit different?
Okay, I'm going to give my point of view about Docker. That the end is the same, because I was checking now the prices again because I don't remember that. Okay, the personal price for desktop is $0, it's free, and now the pro you have to pay $5 per month, and then you have a team is $10 $9 per month, or $25 per month, depends of the different single sign-on, the different concurrent builds that you want to have, depends of whatever number of teams. And we back again to something. So Docker was able to create a standard, and it is a company. And they decided one day, okay, we need to make profitable. So we need to make money of that. And they decided to make money of that. Again, everything that is personal use is for free. But it's true that there are many companies, making millions because they are using Docker, and they don't pay anything. So for sure that maybe you can say this is a different case because some components are open source, some other components are, but at the end, we back again to the same principle. It's a company. And it's a company, I'm going to check now how many employees, because I remember there was something like 3,000-4,000 employees. So it's a company with employees that you need to pay salaries to these employees. And at the end, it's the same. So they only says if you're a company and you're using Docker, you need to pay for Docker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's legal. It's like whatever other, I always say the same. Kirill wrote an article time ago in NKDev explaining all the monthly cost that we have to be running in NKDev. All the services that we have to pay. So all the SaaS that we pay. And we need to consider Docker and another SaaS. It's a software as a service that your company needs to use, and then you pay for that. So because Docker is not Kubernetes. So it's different.
Mm-hmm.
One is connected to a non-profitable organization, and the other one is connected to a company.
But from the user's perspective, like when something like this happens, and in case of Reddit, nothing changes for the user because we don't pay to use Reddit. But as a company, when something like that happens to Docker, and my company realizes that from now on I have to pay a lot for this feature, or more than I previously was paying. But at this very moment, I can decide, like, fuck the shit, I'm good, I go to alternatives. And there are alternatives. And simply because of that, and because of a lot of people decided to switch to alternatives, those alternatives are now are a major players in the similar area, and now Docker have to be a competitor to these alternatives, and they have to compete with the free version of similar feature. I think in that case, Docker simply created more problems for themselves. Like they had this large user base, but now then they introduced new policy, and a lot of a big chunk, a big part of the user base switched to free alternatives. Probably good alternatives, because I remember Kirill dedicated a lot of articles and videos to Docker alternatives on MKDev and on our YouTube channel. I think, Kirill, you can explain a bit more about that, how these tools really an alternative, and is they really that better, and is it worth switching to them entirely? And is even my understanding of the issue is correct, or I understand it entirely incorrectly?
Slightly incorrectly. So,
Burn in your face.
because there is a Docker as a technology and Docker as a company. So what Docker initially was, it was a primarily technology. It was like this, they made a concept of packaging application into containers extremely, let's say, affordable conceptually and easy to use. So you could just take your application, package as a Docker image, and then run it anywhere. And that was the start of Docker. But then this concept of running containers became so popular and widespread that there appeared to be a need for standards. So actually, to move away from Docker as something owned by a company to provide some kind of a, like standard like HTTP standards for web requests. And all the standards appeared, and slowly with also the collaboration from Docker, they were implemented, and now every part of running a container or building and storing container image has a standard, like a official specification with some GitHub repositories. There is a whole organization around all of the standards. And when you run containers these days, for example, in AWS EKS, there is no Docker. Like when you run containers in Kubernetes, right now, there is no Docker in place. There are tools like the lowest level tool that we just published videos about is called runC. And then on top of runC, there are high level tools. And sometimes one of these high level tools is Docker. So at the very bottom, you have the specification how to run containers. And you have this minimalistic tool runC that simply works within the specification to run these containers. But this specification is very, let's say, bare bones. It's just like how to start an isolated process on a Linux machine to run your application, or how to take an archive with some contents and unpack it on your system so that it kind of follows the directory structure that can be consumed by this by the container runtime.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because the specification is so low level, there are high level tools like Containerd and Docker that make it easy, and they add some like monitoring features, metrics, health checks, some capability to run containers across multiple hosts, to some networking. Like, for example, networking is not part of the specification, and then Docker has its own approach to networking. And so today it's incorrect to say a Docker container or a Docker image because they're not Docker specific anymore. Like in the last 5 or more years, all the standards were built, implemented, and rolled out that there is nothing Docker specific. It's just a container that's been running. There is no Docker. It's just we keep saying Docker because it's the same way we say Kleenex when we want to say tissue. It's just some kind of a name that's stuck in the brain of everyone, even when there is no Docker involved.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use any of the big cloud providers, there is no Docker in most of them. Now, if you start containers, if you start Kubernetes cluster on Google Cloud, I think there is also just Containerd. There is no more Docker because Docker also was built to be very user friendly, and user being human. But you actually don't need this convenience in terms of Kubernetes cluster. Now Kubernetes is this default way to run containers, so there is no place for Docker in there. Now Docker as a company is what we discussed in one of the previous episodes about Elasticsearch. It's basically, they try to offer some extra services, a software as a service, that people can use. They don't have anything like an enterprise Docker edition with some extra features. They just have the software as a service. And the most popular thing that they offer is a container registry. That's the place where you store your packages for your applications. And this used to be completely free. Whenever you run like Docker pull or any other tool that pulls the container image, it goes to a website hosted by Docker and gets content from there. And what used to be the case is actually there was a free tier of this container registry from Docker that teams, I think up to 5 people, could just use for free. So if you're a company like MKDev and you use containers to run your application, you could package and push this for free to Docker Hub and start them to actually make your application available. And that was free. So what Docker tried to change is because they actually need to find a way to make money, because they had Docker Swarm, which was kind of an alternative to Kubernetes, but they just it died. Like they did not manage to make it popular. They need to make money in some other way, and one way is like all this. Also, something that we discussed is they have some certifications, they have some consulting support services, like some enterprise support for Docker users, and they try to make money with software as a service. And now they see that thousands of companies just use this free tier because maybe it's just startups to build and push images, and Docker is not profiting from this, but they need to maintain the whole infrastructure. So what they try to do is to deprecate this free tier, this free Docker for teams.
So this did in fact happen. Okay.
And but that was not, it was not related anyway to the whole idea of moving away from Docker to some other open source utilities, because Docker is still open source. There is this Moby that is kind of at the core of the Docker. This move happened way before in 2014, 2015, when companies like Red Hat, Google, etc., they realized that containers become central to how you run applications, and they just could not rely on some private entity to own all of this. They just pushed for the standards, and Docker cooperated. And that's also what our Dockerless course, which is currently halfway through of being published on YouTube, is about the standards. The idea is not to use Docker. The idea is to understand that actually containers do not equal Docker. It's kind of a set of standards now. So Docker tried to deprecate this free tier, and then it was used so much by open source developers that all this noise appeared. I think what Docker kind of miscommunicated is that it was, even after deprecating free team tier, it's still free for open source. You just need to apply. But I guess people also did not like that you need to apply as an open source product to get free usage of Docker Hub.
But checking the numbers?
I see. So in fact, it was like a misunderstanding from my side and from the side of many more people who didn't understand that correctly, because from my perspective, it looked like Docker announced new policy and everybody have to pay now. And they decided, no, we are not going to pay. We rather switch to other alternatives. And I genuinely thought that the whole idea of introducing this new feature is like introducing people to Docker alternatives. Like there are a lot of them. And the reason why they appeared and why they became so popular is because Docker announced new prices. And now I understand that this is incorrect, and those tools and those applications existed before, and they tracked the popularity because containerization as a concept became a standard. So that's what happened. And these two events, unrelated to each other, happened more or less at the same time, which created the confusion. From my side.
The Docker is today it's I think primarily used on local machines. So for example, on my MacBook, I use Docker for desktop because on MacBook, it's the most convenient way to run containers locally for development. But when we talk about Docker to actually run applications in production, I think it's less and less used, or it's used just because it became this default thing in your infrastructure. It's just like being rolled out by default.
But did you check the numbers, Kirill? The company grew 40% because last year they made 100 million in revenue, and they grow 40%. And they have now even 40% more employees with almost 600. I was thinking that it was 4,000, it's 640. So, but again, the problem is that with these numbers, they made, so every employee, they can pay 160K per year. So it does mean that they are losing money too. So it's another company even losing more money than Reddit. So they need to make money. So desperately, because if not, the solution is they close. And if they close the door, so someone needs to attend everything that is there. Because at the end, we need to think that like companies, not like non-profit organization. And Docker is a company with 640 people. At the beginning, no, but today it is.
That's not the first thing that's not the first time they tried to limit this free usage, because I think 2 years ago they introduced a rate limit for downloads from Docker Hub, because what used to be the case is that this hub.docker.com, it just stores all the container images in the world. Everyone uses this by default. And then whoever runs containers, when container is started, it makes basically a Docker pool or whatever other tool pulls the image, which means download anywhere from 20 to a few gigabytes size of file from Docker Hub. And that was for free. And at some point, Docker just said, well, like, we cannot keep doing this. We cannot offer this for free because we have to kind of just own this backbone of all container world, which is this Docker Hub. So they introduced rate limiting, which means if you do not have a user account on Docker Hub, there is something like, 1,000 pools per hour or something like this. So they added this limit. And that's when also lots of noise happened around this rate limit, because lots of infrastructures just broke at some point because people did not pay attention that this rate limiting is happening. And then, for example, what AWS did, they announced this ECR gallery, which is like a clone of Docker Hub, but with a different rate limiting inside AWS. So it's actually similar to Reddit or to all of these cases, that there was a very generous free offering that people got used to without realizing that, okay, at some point it will end, because it cannot be like this forever. Like, someone needs to pay for all of this. And the obvious choice are users of the service.
Mm-hmm. But again, I want to get back to Docker alternatives, because at some point, the concept of containerization became so popular, and Docker even become a proverbial name for this feature. Like you mentioned Kleenex when you want to say napkin or tissue. And more and more companies started realizing that they need to switch to containerization. But instead of continue using Docker, they decided to create their own alternatives, their own tools to run containers. And what happened with Docker, and they lost their position as a leader or as a sole owner of the concept. And instead of one major company that provides this container solution, we now have a lot of other smaller companies and smaller open source tools that provides similar idea. But this didn't happen with, for example, with Reddit. Like that, yeah. So they have this idea of providing a place for users to share content, discuss news, and discuss a lot of different topics. And this concept isn't new, but Reddit is still rather a monopoly in this area, even though there are a lot of smaller platforms that provide similar concept. They're not quite as popular as Reddit, and there are no major alternatives to Twitter, but there are a lot of alternatives to Docker. Why this happened? So did Docker did they do something wrong, or other tools are simply just better? So what happened? Then which are these tools?
Reddit is not a technology. Reddit is like
It's a concept.
It's a concept,
Yes.
like Facebook, while Docker is a technology. And the difference is that the technologies, are changing. while the places like Facebook or Reddit is completely different. I think it's two different points. I understand why Docker, has become less and less and less popular, and why teams like other technologies are more and more popular. But always is going to be the same. But I understand too why Reddit is always popular, because it's two different concepts at the end. Not to be one with the other.
But what is the most popular container tool instead of Docker today? For you, for Kirill, for Pablo, you work with mostly different cloud providers. Pablo mostly specified in Google Cloud provider, Kirill with AWS. So do you use the same container providers or tools? Or there are different? Which one is better?
Depends. It became locally. I think the most popular one is Docker in any case, except some Red Hat people. No one is using Podman actively for day to day. I tried, but then I was like, just Docker nailed the developer experience part. In terms of running containers in production, the thing that none of the lower level container tools solve is how do you run these containers at scale on many, many different machines. Because Docker and all these lower level tools, they solve the problem of how do you run container on a single computer. What infrastructure requires is how do you run containers at many, many different computers and interconnect them together and give some other primitives. So today, when we run Kubernetes on any cloud, in most cases, we don't care that much about all the lower level implementations because, first of all, it's not something you need to tune and tweak in most of the environments. Second, all of this is in any case standardized now, so all the parts are interchangeable. Because if container runtime complies to runtime spec, you can just replace one with another. It's also something that we have in our Dockerless course. Just I show how to use runc, and the next video how to use crun, which is basically another runtime, just implement another language, but using the same specification, and outcome is the same. So you can still take the same container image and run it, and there is no difference. It kind of became this lower level detail, really. And it's not that critical. It is runc. In 99% of cases, it's runc. So even if you use Docker, it's runc, and even if you use if you use containerd, at the bottom it's runc, and on the second level it's containerd. So this kind of a sandwich was always to be like runc, on top goes containerd, on top goes Docker. And what cloud providers did, they just removed Docker piece because it made no sense. They kept containerd because it's the most stable and popular and has all the required features for running containers on a single machine. And below goes runc because it's everywhere. It's this default thing till someone implements something even better and more lightweight.
So there is no tool that dominates a market, and there are a lot of tools, and you can use them. Depends on a lot of things.
Well, there are lots of tools to build container images. That's where people have preferences, and you can actually choose how you build container images. Because, for example, the whole Java ecosystem, they have Jeep from Google, which kind of builds container images without any container runtime. There is a project called Canicode. There are there is a builder from Red Hat that focuses only on building images, unlike Docker, which kind of does everything. So for building and pushing images, there are many options. For actually running containers, there are way less popular options. And in the end, they all do more or less the same. They unpack the container bundle, and then they start a process within particular folder structure. And the process is then just a Linux process, not different from any other Linux process, with some boundaries related to security around it, like Linux capabilities, the C groups. But all of this is the same. It's not like another container runtime would still work within the same specification and implement this more or less similarly. It might be faster to run it, might have some extra isolation features, but there's no kind of a big feature that would differentiate one from another.
I see. Cool. Okay, guys. That was an interesting deep dive, at least for me, into how containers evolved into what we have today. And I still kind of feel ashamed that there is no one rule them all tool for containers. But this is what I like about open source. You always can find something that you prefer, and no one can dictate what to do and impose you with their own policies. Just like it happened with Reddit. This is cool. I like it. And I would like to wrap up this conversation. If you guys have something to add to the conversation, feel free to leave the comments. Feel free to message to us or reply directly to the email from MKDev Dispatch newsletter that you receive bi-weekly. If you find it interesting, say something about it, and say something about containers and what tools do you prefer, and if you would love to see more deep dive course like we have with Dockerless on YouTube and Udemy. And give us subscriptions, give us likes. And thank you, Pablo, and thank you, Kirill, for joining today.
A pleasure.
I still think this was
you.
It was a pleasure. It was a great talk. Thank you, guys. And with everyone, see you next time.
Do you think your project infrastructure is well set and maintained? We know for sure there is always room for improvement. If you are uncertain where to begin, let's first do an audit of what you already have. We will review your setup from every angle: performance, cost, security, high availability, and automation, and provide you with a detailed roadmap of which direction your infrastructure should go, generate concrete tasks for you to implement, or even take on your infra entirely, if you let us, of course.